wants to charge us for electricity. I don't like it, but that's where we are. Now, the other guy. You know who I mean, right? Edison, come on. You know who the other guy is? Edison. That's right. The other guy. I like to call him the other guy because he stole a lot of stuff, all the inventions he supposedly had. Weren't actually his, believe it or not.
That's right.
He stole them.
It was the start of the time, Mickey.
It was the start of the time. I'll steal all my gum. That's what I do. No, but look, we are talking about Ancient Aliens again.
Yeah, we still have one more hour on it.
Yeah, no, right now, yes, we do. And
Jer will be here in an hour's time.
Correct, 100%. Because we are going through daylight savings. You know what? So Benjamin Franklin came up with the whole concept, which I thought was actually not a bad idea, because back in the day, there was no electrical light per se, right? I mean, there was no electricity running through all the cities. It was candlelight. And he actually introduced it because he wanted to save on candles. Because he wanted to work later into the night, and if it got darker at a certain time, then he could no longer write or read. That's right. So he needs to. Westinghouse were the people that slapped a whole bunch of meters and everything. Anyway, so he said, well, let's just move the daylight.
Move the time. Yeah.
1 hour at least. Yeah. So during summer we have more productive time. It's now it's still light out. So why not make the time accordingly? And that makes sense. It made perfect sense back then. Now,
I've always liked that without daylight saving, the curtains faded.
Yes, that. We should go to the sun at night. It's cooler.
Yeah, it's much cooler.
Yeah, we land on the dark side of the sun. That'll help us. No, so ultimately, the problem here is that we no longer burn candles really that much, right? And in fact, our working lives has become so haphazard, and so many people are working, night shifts, etc., etc. That the whole idea of daylight saving is completely pointless. It's antiquated. And it doesn't make any sense today anymore. Yet still, we observe it almost like a religious act. Every year, twice. In fact, we change time 1 hour forward, 1 hour back, whatever it might be, wherever we are.
And we use electricity, but it doesn't matter what time it is. You're still going to use the electricity anyway.
See, this is the schizophrenic thing, though. Now, if you thought that daylight saving is such a great thing, then you stick with it, and you have good reasons why to do it, right? Fair enough.
Oh.
However, in Australia, Queensland decides, you know what, it's a stupid idea, we'll not do it any longer. So they don't. It's Queensland, which is just north of New South Wales, no longer, or has not for a while, observed daylight savings time.
If you travel into Queensland, it's kind of like going back in time 25 years.
Back in time. But it's a sensible approach, because again, daylight savings fulfills no purpose anymore. None. Zero. Anyway.
Oh, there's that new Plymouth.
That's how I.
It's like going to Cuba.
That's how I feel about daylight savings. It's a complete nonsense. It makes no sense. It's just like our monetary system we discussed in the first hour.
It makes no sense.
No sense.
The Chewbacca defense.
But Dave, we are talking about ancient aliens. Ancient aliens, and in fact, today, if I can get you to take us
straight into it.
Did we go and
we're going to talk about today Men in Black.
Man, that's what I thought. That's a lovely topic. Go ahead, my friend.
Thank you. Whilst I've not had an encounter with the Men in Black, I have had encounters with other agencies.
Men in Purple.
No.
Or
Lycra. No. No. It's I won't mention it. I'll tell you after the show. So, Men in Black, the extraterrestrial hypothesis is the theory that some identified flying objects, or UFOs, or UAPs as we know them now, are best explained as being extraterrestrial life or non-human aliens from other planets. The idea sounds simple to modern-day humans, but in a relatively new concept. But it is a relatively new concept that originated out of the saucer sightings and close encounters of the 1940s to 1960s. thousands of UFO sightings have been reported in the last 50 years, and one of the emerging themes in these events is the Men in Black. The Men in Black are men or aliens, because we don't know. Some eyewitnesses say they look very similar to humans, but are much taller, paler, and say very little.
Some don't blink. I mean, it's a whole bunch. I mean, it's a really, really strange description of. Anyway, yeah.
I've seen a footage of them entering looking for a person in a hotel, but they usually keep out of camera. So, dressed in black suits, who have been reported to harass or threaten UFO witnesses to keep them quiet about what they've seen. In most cases, the men claim to be government agents, but it is often suggested that they may be aliens themselves. People who have reported an encounter with the Men in Black often describe them as men of short stature. That's not what I've heard. I've heard them as tall stature, with a deeply tanned or dark complexion. According to the accounts, Men in Black always seem to have detailed information on the person they are in contact with, as if the individual had been under surveillance for a long period of time. Well, that would just be normal intel. They have been described as seeming confused by the nature of everyday items, such as pens, eating utensils, or food, as well as using outdated slang. G'day, cobber, would be a good example. Those who have encountered them say they produce identification, but when verification is later sought, the people described do not exist or have been dead for some time. Another defining characteristic of the Men in Black is wide grins and disconcerting giggles. Oh, like Kamala. The hyena. The phenomena has been frequently reported since the 1950s and 60s, but some researchers, including John Keel and others, have suggested similarities between the Men in Black reports and earlier demonic accounts. Keel suggests that the beings are a modern-day manifestation of the same phenomena that was earlier interpreted as the devil or encounters with fairies. The term the black men, has been used for centuries in reference to the devil in history. So there's a full stop to the devil in history. The black man was often reported as meeting with the accused and having sexual intercourse with them. Old Scratch or Mr. Scratch is another folk name for the devil that is used to in the local legends of New England in pre-Civil War America. During the Middle Ages, the black man, in air quotes, not African American rather, was not a person of African features, but rather a man coloured black and dressed in black. In modern times, another phenomenon not known as the grinning man has become associated with the Men in Black, and various reports of paranormal activity. These creatures are larger and characterized by wide grinning face. In most cases, people describe a strange sensation of not being able to focus in on the grinning man, like they've got a shield, or maybe they're kind of just slightly out of phase. It has been suggested that the smile is an attempt by the aliens to conform to society and keep humans feeling safe, but in all reports of the figure is described as extremely creepy. In the Half-Life series of the first-person shooter video games, there is a mysterious character named G-Man that parallels some of the Men in Black descriptions. Mickey, I wanted to just pause for one quick second.
Sure. Yeah.
So the Men in Black movies was kind of like the Disney-esque version of Men in Black, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably best put that way. The other one, that the doctor who's the alien in the small Alaskan town. Do you remember that one where he's pretending to be a doctor, but he killed the doctor and took his skin?
It's actually called Resident Alien.
Yeah, Resident Alien. Yeah. He portrays that same kind of Men in Black, where he's trying to laugh and fit in with people, but he has no idea really how to, he doesn't have the emotional context to be able to fit in all of these emotions. And I kind of see that as a very close description of the Men in Black, as well as their demeanor. But the people who have, they say the hotel lobby footage, which is out there at the moment, where they wear those sharp hats and black suits, and they come in to question them, and the person had to take days off work because they were so frightened by just them asking for an individual.
Mm-hmm.
That imposing view. Remember, the policeman, Mackie, had to be over 6 foot to be imposing.
Bobby had to be over 6 foot, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So my father was a police officer, and he was over 6 foot. Not so much now that he's 86. But I've not come in contact with them. I don't think I've needed to. Or whether I'm in the same jurisdiction. Certainly, if I lived in America, it probably might have been a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
But Mackie, back to you.
Which brings us to the Greys. But before I go to the Greys, it is interesting that this phenomenon of agents, and I mean this here in the sense of acting on someone else's behalf, right? Of the Men in Black has been with us through some time. Even stories like Dave pointed out of the fairies, etc. Like otherworldly encounters. So again, we discussed this before. If it is truly an ancient civilization, truly an alien civilization, right? They've been using the same tech for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years, right? Clearly, because we see the same depiction, the same descriptions, like a flying shield, which is the same as a flying saucer, etc., pop up everywhere, right? And therefore, it would stand to reason that they have the same agents amongst us doing this. The same, for whatever reason, but doing the same things that they have been doing forever in 3 days. So it is a real phenomenon. It is something that is happening to people, and I do believe there are actually, honestly, there are a number of different organizations that are identified as Men in Black, and it's always men. Interesting enough, never women. And I think some of them are, in fact, government officials or government agents, as it were, working for the Navy or the CIA or whoever, or other organizations in other countries. And then there are other Men in Black that are otherworldly, and I don't know where they come from, but certainly that phenomenon is real. And on it goes. There are other things and other organizations that might be interested in keeping a lid on things. So we shouldn't just think of it as one homogeneous group of Men in Black. I think it's a bit more complex than that, right? There are more things here than we possibly could imagine at this point. That's at least my take on it. So the Men in Black is, yes, it is a phenomenon, but I think it's a motherhood statement that there are Men in Black. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, I thought it was the fedora, to answer the question in the chat room. What kind of hats do they wear? It was my belief that it was the fedora style.
Yeah, I think that's correct. The fedora. And they have this classical, if you will, 1940s, 1950s secret agent look.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the kind of hat they have. But let's.
I had another one. Last one. When, say, the characters, it's fiction, but when the characters of Star Trek ever landed on Earth, they were so remotely out of place that you couldn't fit in if you tried. But they did try. Just wearing the clothes doesn't fit you in. You don't. It's not like, trying on shoes. Just because my foot is the right size, the shoes are the right size is going to work. It's all about your demeanor. And if you're not matching the demeanor of the time, like if you're a 1940s crime-fighting private investigator, you're not going to even speak the language.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going to have a completely different vernacular. So I think it's really important just to remember that it seems like they're so out of place, but they were just reading old literature or seeing old movies in order to try and fit in, but we've progressed from then. Imagine in another 50 years, we just might speak in emojis.
Yeah.
Smiley face.
Yeah.
Wink.
That's right.
Pile of doo-doo. Steaming. Right.
I hear you.
I still don't know what eggplant means, and I don't want to ask.
Yeah, I don't think we want to know.
No, probably don't want to know.
Yes. The old eggplant caper.
If it's a caper now, I'm going to have to Google it now, and then I'm going to get worried in what I see. All right, Mickey. So tell me more about the Greys.
The Greys, indeed. Now they're probably the most common image we have in our head when we talk about aliens, right? I mean, it's almost like a trope. Well, actually, it is a trope for our culture where we have these. It's either little green men, right? That's sort of gone out of fashion, really, if you think about it. And it's been replaced with the little gray aliens, large eyes, a very tiny nose and ears and tiny mouth, pointy chin, spindly, limbs, as it were. And in some ways, similar looking to ET, but not quite, right? Now, Greys are a proposed alien species that is most widely associated with the alien abduction phenomenon, right, which is interesting as well. It has been alleged that Greys are intelligent extraterrestrials who visit Earth and secretly perform medical experiments on humans. Paranormal claims surrounding the Greys are different in many ways, including their nature, moral dispositions, intentions, and physical appearances, some having a different skin color, for instance. A composite description derived from overlap claims could have Greys as small-bodied, sexless beings with smooth gray skin, an enlarged head, and large eyes. They're described as humanoid beings that possess reduced forms of or complete lack of external human organs, such as noses, ears, or sex organs, as I mentioned earlier. Their bodies are usually depicted as being elongated, having a small chest, and lacking in muscular definition. According to a 1995 study among reports of alien encounters, Greys make up approximately 50% in Australia, 43% in the United States, 90% in Canada, 67% in Brazil, 20% in continental Europe, and around 12% in Great Britain. It has been proposed that the home planet of these beings is located in the Zeta Reticuli star system. Greys are therefore sometimes known as Zeta Reticuli. Yeah, Reticuli, Zeta Reticuli. Mm-hmm. People have reported two distinct groups of Greys, with one being much taller. This has led to the suggestion that the smaller Greys are not biologically alive, but instead an artificially constructed robot or even cyborg servant. People have described the Greys as staring into their eyes when conducting mental procedures. This staring, which is performed directly in your face, is claimed to induce hallucinogenic states or directly provoke different emotions. Now, according to English reproductive biologist Jack Cohen, typical image of a Grey, given that it would have evolved on a world with different environmental and ecological conditions from Earth, is too physiologically similar to a human to be credible as an alien species. This brings us to the theory that these extraterrestrial beings had some influence on the evolution of life on Earth in the distant past, or that they are an ancient race of humans that was forced to abandon Earth, but still watches over the planet. This is a theme, of course, that you're familiar with if you've listened to Dave and I ever in the past. So there's nothing. Yeah, but having said that, descriptions of demons, right? And
within the context of the period.
Yeah, or we're talking hundreds of years ago, etc. So yeah. Small people, etc. Even fairy folk, they all bear interesting resemblances to these alien Greys, if you will, or Grey aliens. We're just looking at this phenomenon now through a modern lens. So they're not demons, they're not some kind of magical creature or whatever it might be, but rather they're extraterrestrials. They might be interterrestrials for all we know. But ultimately, it is interesting that we seem to have had these encounters in time. I mean, they're cave paintings, which for all intents and purposes do depict Greys as they're described today. So this goes back well into prehistory, Dave.
Yes, it does. And I'm just making sure I'm at the right point.
Spaceship Moon.
Oh, yes. Oh, lovely topic. I love this.
I know, right?
Yeah. Spaceship Moon theory is where they could be? Over the years, it has been scientifically observed that the Earth's moon holds some strange characteristics. The moon is the fifth largest natural satellite in the solar system. That doesn't hold too much yet. Let's see what is next. It is believed to have been created by a giant impact between the young Earth and Mars, or a Mars-sized body, not Mars specifically. After examination, it has been noted that the moon is apparently in the wrong orbit for its size, according to its current assumed density. Astronomy data indicates that the internal regions of the moon are less dense than the outer, giving rise to the inevitable speculation that it could be hollow. And NASA sent up two satellites. Ebb and Flow is what they're named, and they are flying around to discover whether, in fact, the moon is hollow or not, says the head of NASA. Astronomy data indicates that the internal regions of the moon are less dense, that's right, giving rise to some of these claims come from the fact that when meteors strike the moon, it rings like a bell. More specifically, when the Apollo crew on November 20th, 1969, released the lunar module after returning to the orbiter, the module impact with the moon caused their seismic equipment to register a continuous reverberation like a bell for more than an hour. Now, you would imagine the density of the material would soften the impact and absorb that energy rather than allowing it to reverberations to ring around it and to ring like a bell. And it wasn't done just once either, it was another time. So in July of 1970, members of the then Soviet Academy of Sciences, Michael Vassin and Alexander Shcherbakov, proposed the spaceship moon theory. The pseudoscientific theory, I love how it's disclaimed, claims that the Earth's moon may actually be an alien spacecraft. Vassin and Michael and Alexander, their thesis was that the moon is a hollowed-out planetoid created by unknown beings with technology far superior to any on Earth. Huge machines would have been used to melt rock and form large cavities within the moon. The moon would, therefore, consist of a hull-like inner shell and an outer shell made of metallic, rocky slag. The spaceship moon was then placed into orbit around the Earth. Proponents of this theory point to the increased reports of pictures of UFOs taken by NASA on their missions to the moon. It has been found that asteroids and meteors not only create shallow craters on the moon's surface, but produce a convex floor to the crater instead of a concave as expected, supporting the idea of a rigid cell. The moon is far older than previously expected. Also, maybe even older than the Earth or the Sun. The oldest age for the Earth is estimated 4.6 billion years old, while moon rocks were dated at 5.3 billion years. The chemical composition of the dust upon which the rocks sit is remarkably different from the rocks themselves. This indicates that the lunar surface may have been moved from somewhere else and placed on the moon. Some of the moon's craters originated internally. There is no indication that the moon was ever hot enough to produce volcanic eruptions. Hundreds of moonquakes are recorded each year that cannot be attributed to meteor strikes. Some of the quakes seem to follow a specific schedule. The moon's crust is much harder than originally presumed. When NASA was recorded drilling down a few inches into the moon's surface, it appeared that metal shavings were visible. Earth's moon is the only natural satellite in the solar system that has a stationary, near-perfect circular orbit. How does one explain the coincidence that the moon is just the right distance coupled with just the right diameter to completely cover up the sun during an eclipse. In fact, it's 400 times closer than the sun and 400 times smaller, therefore covering it up perfectly. Professional astronomers have been gradually discouraged from investigating a phenomena that has been reported on the moon for 1,000 years. It is a short-lived light, colour, or other changes in appearance of the lunar surface referred to as transient lunar phenomena. In fact, 1,000 years, there's been records kept of these transient lunar phenomena, which means lights or things going, moving across the surface, flying across the surface, well before we had space flight, and well before we had Earth flight, or air, heavier than air flight, or even lighter than air flight. So it's some crazy data, and exactly where the planned lunar missions were first to take us was the sites of most of those transient lunar phenomena going back the 1,000 years of recordings. Isn't that crazy, Mackie?
That's kind of crazy.
So I just want to say I love the leader. So what I've done is Mackie and I have discussed this, and since these reports of a metal skin or outer skin, it's completely possible that it was just something that looked or resembled as a sphere, a metal sphere. But because it's been in space for such a long time, everything that hits it causes dust, and it's all settled on a surface, and all the rocks there. No wonder you don't have a deep crater, even with a huge impact. It's just a solid sphere, like outer shell, like a chocolate egg. So you buy it at Easter time, or one of those the chocolate chicken, or the chocolate bunny. That's just melted chocolate in a mold, and as it rotates the mold, it fills and coats the inside until it cools down. They remove it, and there's a shell. So very similar. If it was an artificial construction, that the outer skin would naturally, through bombardments, end up coated in a dust and regolith as we know it today. Naturally, it would happen, right? So for the ringing of the bell, very interesting. I'm kind of a supporter of that. Was it 1965 movie where Santa Claus versus the Martians or something when they go to the moon, whatever, right? And there's insects living there, like insect life kind of thing, like ant standy-uppy kind of anti things. I kind of support that theory, or maybe they're all wiped out now because of a galactic war, a solar system war, or maybe a local region war. Maybe Mars was attacked as well, and hence all the craters, right? Don't know. Don't we? I hope to be able to be in the generation that finds out. I really do.
Look, yes. Yeah, well, the answer is
my mum was psychic, and she tried to reach out with her mind to learn more about the moon, and was told no.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
So she goes, I don't know what's going on there, but I'd stay away from it if I was you. Likewise, if it was yours and you had some, crazy folk in a tin can with chemical propulsion that ends up landing on your surface, you'd be observing them too, right?
Mm.
Says the people that heard the medical channel of the lunar landers saying, they're on the rim of the crater. I wonder. And is there a perfect segue? Probably not.
No, that's okay. No, look, we're going to discuss now some of the ancient cave art, if you will, right? Some of the ancient depictions of what could be termed anomalous objects. So Dave and I, this is actually not part of our show notes, but I will add it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Dave and I went to Mount Yengo.
Mount Yengo? Yengo if you're looking for it on the map.
Yeah, but we didn't actually go to Mount Yengo. We went to a little
lookout. Yes.
Plateau that can see it.
Uh-huh.
But on that plateau, our friend of the show's Paul Hovey took us to a place where his father had taken him. It was actually not that easy to get to.
It was an expedition and 4-wheel drive only, I'm afraid.
Oh yeah. Now we took the Evans father and son.
Mm-hmm.
to that site as well, and they were quite amazed by it. Essentially, it was Biami was meant to be depicted in the rock art there, and the rock art, of course, is very similar to the rock art you find elsewhere in the world, simply because of the way it was made, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this one specific, very large carving, I guess you want to call it, in the rock. And we used, of course, water to trace it, not chalk.
Without damaging, because not allowed to use chalk. Yeah.
Correct. So we did that, and for all intents and purposes, it looked like a person in a suit with a helmet,
like a skin-tight skin suit kind of thing with a wristwatch.
Yeah, with boots and the helmet and all that
some
stuff.
Some kind of badge on their chest.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, it was also the place from which Biami was meant to have taken off.
Yes.
Or jumped across to Mount Yangon and then taken off into space, as it were. So it is, and it was a site of great significance to the Aboriginal elders. So much so, in fact, that one of the elders heard about it. She trekked there on foot, which is no mean feat.
Yeah.
4 drives to get there, and it took us hours. And I mean this, it took us hours to get there. And there was at some point we had to obviously abandon our vehicles and go on foot. And there was even a tree across the road.
Yeah,
I mean, perfectly placed. Don't come here. Nothing to see here. And apparently she subsequently died there on site. But she was so upset about this site, being there, or maybe not having been made aware of it, or whatever it might have been, that she actually trekked there herself to see it. So, sorry, that was just something Dave and I actually physically visited ourselves, and just to see what it was, what it looked like, and it did look like it. I mean, I can't imagine what a person at that time, or what we allow them to have, been able to conceive of as far as science or advancements are concerned, technology, right? But it does, for all the world, look like a person in a certainly a suit that would be, could it be space, could be underwater, I don't know, but it's certainly a suit that would allow you to have your own sustained environment within.
That's right. Yes. So your own environment suit. Yeah. Mickey, the story of Biami is very similar to, say, the Norse gods, and the Northern European, Southern European story of a father and 3 sons.
Yes, correct.
And one died, one stayed, and one returned with the father. But they created humanity.
We're talking about obviously Odin or Wotan or Woden, and his sons Hodor, Thor, and Loki was one of them, but the one I'm thinking about is not Loki.
Yeah, these were also giants.
Yes, correct.
And because the stories are so similar, but this is the location also of the origin of what the Australian Aboriginals call the message stick, which is their news propagation service, in which information begins there as the message stick is then taken to its destination, like a delivery service of news. Extraordinary that it should only be, so close. Even though on that expedition it took us so many hours, but it's only as a short direct drive for me, like 45 minutes. So, because we didn't know quite where it was, we took all the roundabout ways to get there. But yeah, extraordinary though. Truly amazing, and there are other artifacts around where I live, which are consistent with an ancient visitation and observance. Yeah.
There's another place, and sorry, I should rephrase it. There are many other places, but one place in particular is called Val Camonica in Italy, and it's one of the largest valleys of the Central Alps. And the Alps are obviously a significant mountain chain in Europe, and it's located in eastern Lombardy. Right? It is the location of a set of ancient paintings that are believed to depict forgotten deities. The pictures resemble modern-day astrals. They start being painted, or rather not painted, rather scratched, into the rock around 10,000 BC, maybe even. It's hard to say. It might have been further into the past even than that. Right. Now, and this is an interesting one because of the date of it.
Oh.
Modern-day photographic evidence was captured by the Solway Firth spaceman photograph. On May 23rd, 1964. Again, May 23rd, 1964. We haven't gone to the moon yet.
Mm-hmm.
The Apollo program is still happening, right? Jim Templeton, a firefighter from Carlisle, Cumberland, took 3 pictures of his 5-year-old daughter while on a day trip to Burke Marsh, situated near Burke by Sands and overlooking the Solway Firth in Cumbria, England. Right? I've got the picture here in the show notes. I don't know if you want me to send it to you to put in the.
I've got the thing. I'll look for it.
Okay, cool.
Well.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Okay, so the only other people reported on the marshes that day were a couple of old ladies. And although cows and sheep would have normally been plentiful, they were huddled together at the far end of the marsh. In the second image, which is an interesting little tidbit of information, by the way, if you have listened at all or watched the Skinwalker Ranch program, you take your shot now. In the second image captured by Templeton, a white figure can be seen in what looks like a spacesuit, rather suit. Templeton insists that he did not see the figure until after his photographs were developed, and analysts at Kodak confirmed that the photograph was genuine. To this day, the picture remains unexplained and a source of international fascination. When the picture was taken in 1964, human spacesuits were in the extreme infancy. It has been suggested by some people that the figure is merely someone with their back to the camera, perhaps wearing a hat or a helmet. Upon the national release of the photograph, Jim Templeton claimed that he was visited by 2 men who, he says, came from Her Majesty's government. The men tried to make Templeton admit that he had photographed a person, but he refused. In the same time frame that the picture was taken, a Blue Streak missile launch at the Woomera test range using Cambrian-built weaponry was aborted because of 2 large men who were witnessed on the firing range. The technicians reported that the figures resembled the Solway Firth spaceman.
Wow.
Now, Woomera is in Australia, just so we're clear where that is. Ufologists have used the photograph as evidence that extraterrestrial life has influenced the modern-day space program, including, potentially, space suits.
Yeah, so I think the men were approached, but they didn't have any ID or any excuse for being there.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So, but look, it is fascinating stuff, right? And we see this level of interference quite a lot, right? The Foo Fighters we discussed earlier. Certainly, there were sightings of craft around or near the moon rocket launches, around nuclear missile sites, around nuclear test grounds, in fact. So someone is keeping a watch on what we do, it seems.
You know, Mackie, it could just simply be the Watchers.
Maybe.
Maybe. Whatever form or shape they are in, or whatever age they are, I'm just going to repeat, I love the leader. So, ancient evidence. The Nazca Lines is the first one, and we'll just do these alternately, I think.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Drawn into a high plateau in Peru's Nazca Desert, a group of ancient designs stretching more than 50 miles has astounded archaeologists for decades. Along with simple lines and geometric shapes, drawings of animals, birds, humans, and have also been made, some measuring 600 feet across. From their colossal size, the drawings can only be viewed and appreciated from way up in the air. And there is no evidence that Nazca people invented flying machines. According to ancient astronaut theorists, the figures were used as guidelines for spaceships as they came in for landing, and the lines served as runways. But there is a possibility that they were done for another reason.
Go on.
Vimanas. It was a segue
Oh,
for
no,
you.
no. Yeah, no, I hear you. No, but I was going to just stay for a second on the Nazca line. Sorry. They're so invisible on ground level that, that highways, like Dave has said, have been built through them, right? And on other shows we've mentioned this as well. But you always have to ask yourself, what is it for? What is the purpose? Now, the Nazca lines are massive, right? The figurines they depict, the area they cover. It's not something you do on a Sunday afternoon. Oh, I just got some time on my hands. Let's just do this, right? And they've survived for thousands and thousands of years, you know, due to various reasons. Obviously, it's very arid, so, you know, and there's very little precipitation, so nothing to wash away anything you do there. But you have to ask yourself, why? Whenever we come across these things, Dave, you know, any strange buildings or, you know, almost impossible seeming feats, you have to ask yourself, why? Why would anyone do this? And there's no good answer here. It just doesn't make any sense. I understand why somebody would build something very large, right? I also understand why somebody would scratch something in the side of a rock, because you can see it, right? Why would you scratch something on the ground that can only be seen and fully appreciated from the air? And not only are you scratching something in the rock, you know, I don't know if any of our listeners have ever seen the Nazca lines, but they're highly stylized, meaning they're not just, you know, some childish scratchings into the ground, but rather
very nicely artistic work.
Yeah, but yeah, almost, you know, if you look at it, it almost looks like computer prints out. This, like a computer, you know, with a certain bit rate would print like this. Highly stylized wings, highly stylized tail feathers, as it were, and other things as well. And there are so many. There's spiders. I mean, there's monkeys. There's a variety of different creatures here, and geometrical shapes. So not just creatures, but and then just lines, straight lines, and lines that sort of are a little bit trapezoid, right?
Yeah.
And truly,
converging or diverging lines. Yeah. Parallel lines. Yep.
It's truly,
what are they pointing at?
Truly massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do they lead to if you follow them in a dead straight path? One thing that's very interesting is that there's high plateau in Peru's Nazca Desert wasn't a plateau at all. It's been cut off. It's been shaved flat like we would do before we built large construction today. You know, flatten the area first, and then it's prepared, and then you build upon it. Well, it's the only plain or the whole area. Everything are these jagged mountains, and this would have been a jagged mountain, but it isn't, and it doesn't make any sense. There is no other plateau, and it's all at the same geological, historical level that this has been cut out.
Yeah, it makes. I mean, some of these lines look like runways.
Yeah.
There's one line that looks like a potential grade, right? One carving, I should say. And there's actually on a mountainside that is pointing towards, I guess, the Nazca lines, right? But on an angle, so you can actually see it from the ground. There's like a trident, like a 3-pointed. Well, it looks more like a candlestick, to be honest, than a trident, but it's called the trident nonetheless. That is pointing directly at Nazca as a signpost. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But that brings us, Dave. Thank you for the segue. But that does bring us to the discussion of ancient flying machines and the potential for ancients, you know, from our point of view, to have developed highly capable craft, both to fly as well as to submerge in water, as well as to go into outer space. And these are Vimanas. We're going to talk about some of the Vedic texts a little later on. Many Sanskrit stories, though, which were written written down, I should say, more than two millennia ago. So the stories themselves might be much older, but they were written down 2,000 years ago. They contain information about mythical flying machines, which are called Vimanas. Comparing the similarities between descriptions of Vimanas and people who have observed UFOs, ancient alien theorists have suggested that India was visited in the past by astronauts from other planets. Now, I hold here again, this is my theory, like I said before, that yes, I think in the past, Earth had high cultures which were in fact in touch with potential extraterrestrial civilizations. In fact, we probably have colonized vast tracts of space out there and have run into extraterrestrials in our travels. And the inner Earth cultures that we still house on this planet probably are still part of that community. But these Vimanas, and I will give you guys a lot more information on them next week, are amazing. I mean, the detail, right? I mean, if it was just someone's fantasy, flight of fantasy, no, okay, well, yeah, but you know, it really is it's quite detailed. It's astounding. But what don't you tell us about the pyramids?
Yeah, so all connected. The string line between each one of these topics is the ancient aliens, and it is long been held that the pyramids of Giza weren't of human construction. So, ancient alien theorists believed that visitors from other planets helped humans build architectural wonders like Egypt's Giza pyramid. Not only is Giza an incredible feat of engineering for its time, but it lies at the intersection of the longest lines of latitude and longitude. How is this possible? Did the builders of the pyramids already understand the Earth was round, like spherical, in it and its dimensions? If you flatten the Earth out, the pyramids are at a point of the equi-sized continents. That's probably the best way of putting it. Seems to place itself at the center.
Yeah.
And the ley lines, when you have, I think it's 8 lines you draw around the Earth, and go through Nazca and through Egypt and through all of the other sites all around the Earth that lend credence to the placement of them. I couldn't imagine that even with all of the displacement of mass that this would have been to balance the Earth or do anything like that. Like as, you have an aluminium rim on your car and they put a little weight there because it balances it. The computers tell it that's where to put it to balance it. Not sure. I don't think there might not be enough mass here, given that when you drain all the oceans and where all the mass is on the Earth, that this kind of doesn't look like it would do that. But anyway, who says I'm just a lowly person sitting in dark and young country?
The funny thing is that the pyramids also perfectly land along the cardinal points, north, south,
yes, they do,
and they have not sunk at all.
No, that's right. Their foundations were tremendous. The largest of the pyramids is not 4-sided, but 8-sided, with indentations, imperceivable by the eye. It midpoints along each of those 4 long sides, slightly enough that only when the sun is at a particular angle does it highlight the fact that these sides are slightly tilted inward. It's extraordinary. What a find. There was nothing inside them, no writing inside them, there's no ash inside them. And their entire purpose remains unknown. There were no bodies found in any of these things inside it either. And of course the claim is, well, they were just stolen before. Oh, really? Stolen before you were able to open it? Yes. Yes, that's it. All of the tubes that leads out of each of these, all the shafts, necessarily could, if you had a large enough source of power, could have acted kind of like a lighthouse with its beam of light warning the ships, but rather something that would be giving a predictable light flash or energy flash to a remote star, someone or somewhere in the universe. Had you designed it for that purpose, it could certainly have done that. And was it a power supply? Was it there just to create oxygen or do for the purpose? We don't know. We have no clue. It's all guesses at this point. But if you ask the Egyptian people, yeah, we built it. That's what we did. And you go, well, build another one. I'll wait for you. Oh, we forgot, see? I don't know how to build them now, but we used to. Clearly it's there. Look, pointing. Yeah, but now we've started to date how old they might very well be. And it would exceed the date of the inhabitants of Egypt in that location. So, quite possible it was a prior civilization that built these, and these have only been inherited. Don't hate me if you're Egyptian, by the way. It's all speculation.
Well, some of it is, and some of it is not. Right?
Well, there is some evidence to show whether.
Yeah, everything that Dave has just mentioned, as far as the evidence of bodies in pyramids or even any kind of painting or art, is completely true. It just doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. It also doesn't have any soot, which is astounding, because there was. How else would they move through the passages if not by torchlight? Mm-hmm. There's no soot. There's not even the hint of soot. So either someone really cleaned up well, or they didn't have any light, or they used the light source, which we don't know right now. So,
yeah.
So it still remains. I mean, people get a bit sick and tired of hearing about the pyramids, but they still are one of the greatest mysteries we face.
And there they are.
We don't know. When people say this and people say that and people say a lot of things, but we still simply do not know. Okay. Which brings us to another side, which is sorry, a couple of minutes. Okay.
2 minutes.
Which brings us to another side, which is equally mysterious, and this is Teotihuacan in South America, in Mexico. In fact, ancient alien theorists have pointed out that some ancient monuments demonstrate a thorough knowledge of astronomy, surpassing knowledge of later cultures. The Pyramid of the Sun at Mexico's Teotihuacan lies at the center of a complex of pyramids, each aligned with a planet in the solar system. Now, we're going to share some more information, again, both about the Nazca Lines, the Vimanas pyramids, as well as a couple other sites with you next week. But suffice it to say that our ancestors, maybe not surprisingly, were obsessed with astronomy and astrology as well. Keeping an eye on the skies, right? Keeping an eye on the planets, their movement, trying to predict it. And quite advanced, even by modern standards, they were, right? And never mind the fact that the pyramids at Giza are perfectly lined to the bell stars of Orion.
Yeah, so laser flat, laser aligned, crazy.
Yeah, which brings to mind, of course, the old adage of as above, so below.
Ooh, yes.
And with that, yes, that's exactly where we're heading here. I'd like you to be safe. Enjoy your daylight saving change, such as it is, and hopefully you will tune in for either the Shiny Side Out or Plato's Cave.
That's a nice plug. Yes, Plato's Cave.
Plug away.
Oh no, I think you did. I've joined it now, and it's a lot of fun. And look, stay tuned for Jebez After Hours. He's coming up next after. If we have bumpers, I don't know, but he's coming up after the top of the break. And enjoy his show as you normally do. Join in, say hello. And this has been Dave and Mecky's Shiny Side Out, episode 521.
120.
Yeah, if there's a producer, can you roll the bumpers? Anyway, take care, everyone, and we'll catch you next week.